So, excellent. So I think we can carry on. What I want us to do now is see how we can move from MySQL to PHP and see how things work out. So, of course, we had installed XAMPP. That's why we are able to run MySQL with SQL So XAMPP allowed us to install PHP. It allowed us to install Perl. It allowed us to install Apache and also MySQL. So PHP, we need two things. We need Apache, which is the web server, and PHP, the programming language. So I don't think that is an issue. The only thing you need to um, uh, have running is just make sure that you have your PHP running. So if you open XAMPP control panel over here, just make sure that Apache is running. Okay, so if Apache is running, then we're good to go. If it's not running, simply just start it and make sure that it is running. That's all. So I think the first thing we're going to do is to set up our environment so that we can be able to now go ahead and use PHP. So what we'll do is all the works that we're going to do, you need to make sure that they are recorded in the following location. You have to go to C, XAMPP, then you go to a folder called htdocs. So here is where I want you to put your project files. So inside here, don't worry, mine is so big, but just create a new folder and call it movies database. Movies database, like that. Okay. So once you call it movies database like that, this is where we are going to do all our work. Now, the code editor I'm going to use is Visual Studio Code. You can feel free to use any. You can use Sublime Text, you can use Atom, really, you can even use Notepad++ for all I care. Basically, you just need text editor, and that's basically it. Visual Studio Code is good because it allows for syntax highlighting, it has color coding for variables, I know those kind of stuff, code completion, and things like that. It has IntelliSense, maybe not a very good one, but at least in some way it allows us to be able to work more efficiently compared to the other environments. You can even use PHP Storm for those people who have a license for it. There's also a community version for it. It's actually one of the best tools to use anyway when you're doing PHP. But nonetheless, all I need is a code editor. So within the code editor, like for example, I've gone to C, XAMPP, HDocs, then I've created a folder called moviesdb. I can right click here and I'll say open with Visual Studio Code. Hmm. Oh, it's not allowing me to open with Visual Studio Code. That's a bummer. But I can open Visual Studio Code, which is my code editor over here. So once I open Visual Studio Code, I'll simply go ahead and say File, Open Folder. You don't open a file, you open folder. Then under Open Folder, navigate to C, XAMPP, HTDocs, then locate your movies DB here. Open it up. By default, it will be blank like that. Not a big deal, and that's where we want to start. So once you've opened it, what you do is I'm going to create a structure here that you're going to use as far as our PHP is concerned. So we're going to use object-oriented programming in PHP, and in object-oriented programming, we're going to use the MVC architecture. So within the MVC architecture, I'll have my models. So I'll click on this folder icon and create models. Then I'll create another folder outside. I click on the outside so that not model is highlighted, but rather the entire movies DB is highlighted. Then I create another folder and call it controllers. Then of course you're going to have our views later on, but I'm going to focus on these two for now. So models and controllers, and you're going to see what they are. So models are the templates that are going to reflect the things we have on our database. So for example, we have a database with movie categories, we have movie stars, we have users, and so forth and so forth. So this is where we're going to store all that information. So it's only the model that will have access to the database directly. So as I'm going to explain in a short while, we'll see how that works out. Now, we're going to have other models that are going to be common. For example, I'll have a model for connecting to my database. I only need one entry and one exit into my database. So I'll create a model that allows me to connect to my MySQL server. So I'll call it db.php, or basically just db. Of course, it has to have PHP as an extension. So inside the models folder here, click on add file, which is here, and call it db.php, like that. So it's going to create one file called db.php. Then, of course, it's going to highlight it here. Now, in PHP, we usually start with that. So, greater than or angle bracket question mark PHP. That's how we start PHP code. Then, of course, we also close it like that. Closing is optional, but I like being consistent. Okay. So that is all our PHP code is going to go inside here. So maybe if you want to test if PHP is working, simply just say PHP info, then you open and close like that. Okay. Then, of course, all PHP statements are terminated with a semicolon, as we're going to see. So this one will allow me to see all the details as far as my PHP configuration is concerned. So to test this, simply open a browser window, navigate to C, navigate to localhost, then go to a folder called moviesdb, because that's where we're storing our file. Then inside moviesdb, we have gone into a folder called models, because that's where the file is located. Then inside models, I have db.php. Now, if I press enter, it's telling me PHP info is not defined. I think that should be it. Is it without an info? Sorry. Is it without underscore? I don't know. I'm not sure. Should have. Let me see. Yeah, it is. It doesn't have an underscore. Sorry about that. So if I do PHP info, you can be able to see it gives me the PHP configuration I have in my system. I'm just using that to test that PHP actually is working, right? So PHP is okay. PHP is perfect, and I'm sure that it's working. So the next thing I need to do is just to go ahead and start achieving my task. Now, what I want to achieve here is to create a class that connects to my database and executes SQL statements. That's what this particular class is all about. Now, again, I'm not going to get to the nitty-gritties of raw PHP, but I'm just assuming that you have a little bit of knowledge about it. Well, and probably you can go to W3 schools if you want to learn just a little bit about it. But generally, what I'm going to implement is PHP and object oriented. So a little bit of a primer would suffice. But even if you don't have quite a bit of that knowledge, then probably we'll be able to see how that works out. By the way, I'm not sure if this recording has audio. Let me just confirm that.